Welcome back to our course on Frank Lloyd Wright. We just saw his impressive comeback in the 30s with the Fallingwater House after almost a decade without work. And one of the major commissions at that time and one of the biggest projects in his careers is the Johnson Wax headquarters, the factory. So how did this project come along and what are the new aspects of the design that Wright implemented?
So these two projects came at almost the same time, and this is actually an office headquarters for the company. And for our purposes, let's start by looking from here to here. So this tower is 1950, but 1936-39, Johnson Wax headquarters. Now, this is now S.C. Johnson, a family corporation. And we see their advertising, and they made floor wax. They made products for cleaning the house, etc. They were a very successful company. And so they're nearby Taliesin, and Wright got the commission to do their headquarters. And so this is the plan of the original part, absent the tower, which comes later. And we'll talk about this later, but we enter in here. And we come through the doors, and then there's a reception desk. There's a large space, skylight above, balcony running around, and over here a secondary space. So Wright's got a kind of a device. He's got to keep using it. So Wright did not like columns, but this span was going to require columns. But these are his columns. They're not the,
Right.
yeah, there's very special columns. So the building is curved. That's to cut down on wind resistance at high speeds. So this kind of streamlining was very much in fashion in the 30s and very much a part of modernism at the time. Part of the motivation was hygiene. So curved walls, no corners, are easier to clean on the inside. So it's used in dairies and hospitals and stuff like that. And of course now the modern architects are very influenced by hospitals, you know, because they're sort of the ultimate in functionalism. And Wright uses a very handsome brick here. I still have the vertical joint is dyed the color of the brick and is flush. So that helps emphasize the horizontality. Inside, we come in to this wall of glass, and in this case, bronze. So this is very much pioneering the modern office building entrance, which has just a lot of glass, and then today stainless steel or chrome trim. And we come into this huge double height space, then we go underneath again, past the reception desk, and then again into the huge open office space. And Wright likes to describe this as it's like working at the bottom of a lily pond. And so he claimed that, you know, productivity would increase and that kind of thing. Well, I don't know if you can prove that, but it certainly is nice to work in a nice place. Now we've got our skylights above, and then we have a band of glass running around here. He wants to tell us that the walls are not holding up the roof, the columns are holding up the roof. So the wall is partitioned, column is supporting, and he designs the furniture, which we'll see in a minute. So here are these beautiful columns coming down to just a 9-inch base and then opening up, like we might technically call them mushroom columns.
So it has to do, the furniture has a lot to do with the curves of the furniture have to do with the curves of the mushroom columns, which have on the other side to do with the curves of the facade.
Right, well,
So
very important.
Everything is integrated
Yeah,
in here.
streamlined. So cut down on wind resistance at high speeds. This is the time of the first streamlined cars, and so it's very much in consciousness. The Raymond Loewy streamlined trains, etc. So streamlining meant modern.
And it's not a box. Important.
Correct, you're correct. Here again we see this band of glass running around. Now, no windows looking out, and even where there is glass here, Wright is putting tubing on that. See this Pyrex tubing lets the light through, but you can't see through it. Here's that entrance we saw coming in with the triple height space. Something we'll just mention quickly, the floor is right about here. The floor is right about here. This is a space below where the air conditioning ducts are.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't tell us. You think, well, I'd be standing down there. No, I'm standing up here. So Kahn would be very clear about that, which is which. We'll see this again in the Guggenheim, that this, he doesn't feel a need to tell you what's parapet and what's the outer wall of the duct space.
Oh, there's also something about the dematerialization of the space and the materials, as we saw in the Robbie house or the early prairie houses, where we can't really read the scale of the house.
Right, right. So another terrific Frank Lloyd Wright anecdote here. Here's this column comes up and just this tiny base. That doesn't seem right. I mean, you're going to have a tilting force on here. How is this going to work? Not only that, the column in the upper part is hollow, and then the mushroom part has these fins, and that's hollow also. So the building department said, okay, that's not going to work. And Wright said, yeah, you want to bet? They built one. They loaded it up with bags of sand. Then they attached a cable to it and pulled on it. And they couldn't get it to fail. So the building department said, okay, you can use them.
So where does the water go through in a column like this?
Oh,
Does
well,
it go inside the column,
there
or?
would be roofing above that.
Oh,
This is
okay.
just hollow as like a stud wall would be hollow.
Oh, I see.
There's surface on both sides.
Was it to save material or
Yeah.
to make it lighter?
And it's inspired by the ribs in a lily leaf.
Oh, right. Okay.
So this is inspired by a loofah and a lily pond. Also, the rebars in here are a mesh of wires, not big thick bars. Just like imagine a loofah, that thing you use in the shower, that's sort of like a sponge, just these
Right.
fibers. Imagine that's your reinforcing, then you pour concrete into that. And so very much inspired by nature, and the result is very strong.
Were these prefabricated or?
No, these
cast
are poured
on?
in place, yeah,
Okay.
on the site. So here's some of the a walkway and office space, glass dome, again covered with these tubes of Pyrex, again a new cutting edge material. And so here we're alternating the Pyrex tubes with neoprene and doing the entire skylights that way, so your opportunity for leaking is unlimited. You have miles of joints.
And in fact, it did leak quite a lot.
Right, but today you go in there with a caulking gun and
Fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're looking up into the skylights. Now the research tower, 1950, and we'll just mention that, and we'll go into that in some detail when we talk about his high-rise buildings. But there's kind of a tree trunk, and we cantilever out. And let's leave it at that, and we'll go into that in detail later. The solid core cantilever out. He rejects the column grid of the Chicago school. So he's not doing this column grid. And it's 1950, just around the time this glass skyscrapers, Lever Building is 1953. The UN is 1947. So it's right at the time of the birth of the modern skyscraper, and he's rejecting that aesthetic for this tree trunk in the center, and then the flat plate floors, cantilevering out. And then the furniture, all modular, so you can add on your wastepaper basket, your drawers, shelves for your typewriter, your various components. So, question for our students. What do you think of this Johnson Wax building compared to the office buildings we have today?
Well, it's a pretty impressive project, and you can see the attention of detail and the respect for work that Wright is putting into a project like this, right? It was almost like the temple for work, what he was designing here.
Yeah.
And it's so daring and so innovative compared to any other project of that time and any other project that Wright himself did. So in a project like this, we can see his talent as an architect, but also as an engineer, because using a structure like this and being able to play with the structure and to push it to the very limit to its structural stability so that you can use it as an aesthetic element is quite impressive. So
Right.
where does this aspect of his interest in structure and creative structures, as we would call them, come from?
Organic analogy. So again, the tower is like the trunk of a tree, and the mechanical runs up and down in there. Just like the sap runs up and down in a tree, and then the floor plates cantilever out, just the way branches come out of the trunk of a tree. And then these columns in the workspace are, again, based on lilies in a pond. The stem comes all the way up, and then there's this big leaf on top with these ribs, making it very strong.
That's quite impressive. And what about the idea of the total work of art? That's something that, or the Gesamtkunstwerk that Wagner used to bring, or what Le Corbusier would call the synthesis of arts. Wright's work has a lot to do with that. With a project in which he designs everything from the space, the site, the materials, the structure, until the very detail of the furniture. Now, what about
the furniture, the wall coverings,
the napkins?
Right.
So, what about this obsession with designing absolutely everything and being able to apply it both on a small scale house and on a large building, as we saw here in Johnson Wax?
Well, from a certain point of view, that's the way it should be, right? I mean, what's the point of making a box for the client and then they put junk in it?
Right.
So actually, we had a colleague where we taught who would never charge a fee.
Really?
The work was free, but the client would sign a contract that they could never change anything inside.
Huh.
All the furniture and everything was, and somebody, if they brought an antique chair, he'd sue them.
Oh. Impressive. So that is like
That's
protecting
the mentality.
total work.
Right.
Impressive. Well, thank you for this.